Well, hey there. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are listening to my podcast every single week, then you know last Monday that I was literally recording from Florida. The audio was probably horrible. Sorry about that. I was literally just on my iPhone. But I am back. I am back from Florida. I am in my regular office, and man, has life and business been exciting. So this week we started my Better Way program with hundreds of new women in there who are trying to build their business online space. It's been fabulous. And I got to tell you some interesting things that have happened. Now, I want you to know that this podcast is not going to be about the topic that I'm going to be telling you about. I want you to have a takeaway from the topic. Okay. As I was flying back from Florida to Kansas City, I got my blood pressure a little up. I'm going to tell you the truth. If you're watching me right now on YouTube, you can see me getting all red and excited again. I had my blood pressure get raised on the plane, just because, I'm just going to tell it to you like it is. And hopefully we're all adults here. My daughter's mask was under her nose, but above her mouth, and she was sleeping against the window in the plane. And the attendant made me wake her to pull her mask over her nose while she slept, with her face in a window. If you saw my Instagram stories, her hair was literally like over her face. I got all sorts of sideways. Okay. So I did it. I woke her up. I pulled it up. I did what I was supposed to do. But then I was also 30,000 feet with that airline and blew a gasket on Instagram stories. And here's why I blew a gasket: just because I feel really passionate about this particular topic with our children. And you know that I stand for family. I stand for kids. Jason and I tried to adopt for 4 years. We waited a long time. We have 3 bio kiddos, and then we've adopted, Ariana. We have gone through all the foster to adopt classes. We have done so much training on children and trauma and all of the things. Okay. And so I am super passionate about family, and I'm super passionate when it comes to my kids. All right. So I wanted to let you know kind of what has happened because of that. That kind of opened up a little bit of a floodgate for me, because this is something I'm super passionate about, but I've danced around in the internet space for a minute simply because I'm nervous about the pushback. And it's been interesting because the pushback was really supportive for the most part. And again, this podcast is not about that topic. This podcast is about, I want to talk to you about being unhushable. That's what the podcast is about, because here is what has happened. So I started talking just about that experience on the airplane. And actually, the reason that is, applicable here is because I was literally making suggestions to the airlines. The airlines are in trouble, and I think they're thinking people want one thing. I think people want another thing. And I was giving some suggestions to the airlines on my Instagram stories, which, by the way, is my space. So I can talk about whatever I want on there. And just telling them, I think that the first airline that does X, Y, and Z is the one that's going to win. I think there's a lot of airlines we're going to see go bankrupt otherwise. And so what's interesting is, so then I started talking just about, because people were like, why is this such a hot topic for you? And then I went a little bit further, and I was talking about vaccines. And if you want to go listen to, me talk about this and give lots of stories and stuff, you can literally go to my Instagram. And there's 2 different Instagram highlight reels. One is called Masks, and the other is, I think we entitled it the word Nope, simply because we've made a decision for our family not to get the COVID vaccination. So anyhow, you can go watch those. I'm not going to go into all the stories, but here's the point of this entire podcast. What's interesting about a hot topic, and not all of you who are in business are supposed to be talking about a hot topic, by the way, but for those of you who really want to, but are afraid of the pushback, I want to give you some perspective on what has happened this week. Okay. So 95% of the comments that I have received have been kind, even if they disagreed. And I think this is really important for you to understand. I think that I delivered what I was saying in a way that wasn't confrontational. So people showed back up in my DMs in a way that wasn't confrontational. Does that make sense? I was like, listen, I'm okay with you doing what you want to do. I just want to make sure that you give me that same courtesy. It needs to be okay that I do what I want to do and what I feel conviction upon. And so when you position it in that way, it's harder for people to argue with you. Okay. So 95% of my comments were kind, even if they disagreed. And I want you to know that. I had so many people say, I cannot believe you're talking about this. Thank you for finally somebody, with the size of your platform talking about this and saying what you're standing up for. I'm too scared. And I'm like, well, girl, listen, like, what are you scared of? Because if 95% of our comments, can be kind, like it's that 5% that are holding you back. And so I wanted to keep talking about this for just a second. It's so important that we as believers especially can engage in conversations where we have a difference of opinion and show the world how to do that in a way that is still kind. Because listen, kindness like doesn't apply just when we agree. All right. So it's important that people see that we can disagree even inside of the church. Sometimes there's a difference in opinions on theology. Sometimes there's a difference in opinions on all sorts of things. But I think it's important that we show people how to disagree in a way that's not just horrible. We're supposed to look different than the world. And so I hope that I've really challenged some of you to maybe position things in a way that can be winsome, that you can post something and somebody, even if they disagree with you, will still come back to you with, kindness and love and all of the things, and not just, cancel one another. Gosh, the cancel culture, like this is what the teenagers are doing. I just blocked so-and-so. And I'm like, well, okay, is blocking seriously like the equivalent of the middle finger back when I was growing up? Is it equivalent of just like ripping their page out of the yearbook? Is that what blocking is? And then if we're supposed to be more mature, is that what we do as like grownups? You know what I mean? And so I'm wanting to just encourage conversation that is more mature and is healthier. So everything was going really well until there was a lady who showed up in my DMs and told me that I was an idiot and told me I just need to hush. And I'm telling you what, something on the inside of me, I was like, oh no, she didn't. Because I'm okay with you disagreeing with me, but this is my Instagram. These are my stories, and you can talk about whatever you want on your stories, but to come up into somebody's DMs and tell them to hush, not okay. And so I went ahead and did like a post about, we need to be women that are unhushable. Like you can't tell me to sit down and shut up because you don't have any right to do that. Does that make sense? And by the way, I don't have any right to do that to you. I have, there's been some people that I've had to unfollow because my peace was being stolen. It went from just basically, disagreeing on some things to my peace is completely stolen. And that's another thing. I have plenty of my friends who feel very differently than I do about the topic at hand. But we're not canceling one another. We're just agreeing to disagree. Even one of my closest friends, I'm like, girl, if you start growing a third arm out of your head after getting that vax, like, don't come complaining to me because I told you it was going to, and I'm joking. And she knows I'm joking, but living in a world where we are able to think differently and also listen to one another, I think it's just so important, you guys. It's so important. And we have to model this well because the world is going nuts. All you have to do is look at a Facebook post and see the back and forth and the back and forth and the hate. And we've got to be bigger than that. Like we've got to rise above the fray. We have to as believers because we're supposed to look different. So, okay. So here's a couple of points I want to make. You get to have a voice. You deserve to have a voice. You are not hushable. You can still speak about things, even if people don't like what you're saying. Okay. That's number one. Number two, kindness and following somebody should not be contingent upon you both believing the same thing. I went over to the Instagram bio for the woman that was hushing me, and it was all about love and kindness. And I challenged her. I said, does love and kindness only apply when you agree with me? Because otherwise, love and kindness, it's the most mature and also the most challenging to show love and kindness to those we disagree with. You can think that I'm wrong, but not tell me to sit down and shut up. Does that make sense? And so I think that it's important that we understand that kindness and following somebody, it doesn't have to be contingent upon you agreeing with every single thing that the other person says. I think that we have forgotten that there is almost an art to being able to agree to disagree on some things, and that shouldn't be like, a deciding factor sometimes. And what I really wanted to get across this week on my Instagram was, listen, it is not me against that woman telling me to hush necessarily. And it's not you against the people who are in your DMs who are disagreeing with you. The Bible says that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual darknesses. And I just think that when the enemy gets us in such a tizzy, just going back and forth at one another and just getting our dig. I'm unfollowing you. I just think, gosh, how easy is his job in 2021? Because we are so easily offendable. And it's so easy for us just to spew our opinions on others without actually even listening. And so there's been plenty of people that I've had a really great conversation with in my DMs this week about why they've chosen to do, certain things and why we've chosen to do otherwise. And we've literally ended the conversation with kissy faces. I need you to know that this is possible. I need you to know that it is possible for you to disagree with people and to still end up in a place where there's still kindness. Okay. All right. So I was talking also on my Instagram that Proverbs 31:8, if you're familiar with the Proverbs 31 woman, it also talks about being a voice for those who don't feel like they have one. I have a voice with almost 100,000 followers on Instagram. I have a voice. I have a platform of 350,000 people on Facebook. I have a platform. It's important for those of you who have platforms to be speaking right now on some things. And I'm not saying on everything. I'm saying you need to be so intimate with the Holy Spirit that you know what things you're to speak on and what things you're to pause on. And knowing the difference in those two will save you so much grief, because we're not called to speak on everything, but we are called to speak on some things. We're called to take a stand on a lot, but publicly speaking about it isn't always wisdom. But for those of you that have a platform, some of you have been super scared to talk about things that you really want to. And I just want to encourage you today to remember that we're called to speak for those that don't have a platform. I would say though, let me challenge the I have no platform position, because you still have a personal Facebook page, even if you're not a business owner. You still have people in your community. You still have people that you talk to. You're still in a bunch of groups on Facebook. So you still do have a platform. And I encourage you just to start using the voice for the people that don't have one. This is why I'm so passionate about fighting for my kids. My kids can't speak up a lot of times because they get benched. They get punished at practice. They get called out in front of everybody for mom having a big mouth. My kids can't be the one that, are talking about the school district or whatever. So I need to be. Because one day when I get to heaven, I am held accountable for how I stewarded the position of mother. And so your kids don't have a voice, moms, but you do. And so if we are in agreement, let's just give an example. For instance, about my kids, I don't want them having to be wearing masks. You need to be able to put your why into stuff that is non-emotional and where you can back it with data. Okay. So that is a really good tip for some of you, but you need to be a voice for the people that have no voices. We do. We're called to that. Okay. So a reminder that your Instagram account, your Facebook account, your podcast, those are all your platforms. We may lose people today. They may unsubscribe because they're like, I can't believe she's talking about not wanting her 6-year-old to have to wear a mask at recess. Guess what? I do not want my 6-year-old to be at recess climbing up and down a jungle gym with a mask covering her face. No, thank you. Out in God's beautiful fresh air. No, that's a hard no for me. And if that is the difference between you staying or you going, like, I'm so sorry, but this is what I stand for. I love you. If you want to have a conversation, we can, but don't tell me to hush. Okay, that's not going to go over well. So, and I hope that you will give that same courtesy to the people who want to have a conversation with you about what you stand for, or when you disagree with somebody. Remember that that's their platform. They can do whatever they want on it. You don't have to announce that you're leaving if you feel like you should leave. It also may be wise just to stick around and maybe have your own ideas challenged just a little bit. I still follow a lot of people who I don't agree with, and I think that that's okay. All right. I ended my Instagram post this week with this. I said, listen, there was a time, believers, when we could stay quiet. And I think that that time is coming to an end. I think that there's a lot of voices in the world right now, and there's a lot of people in the middle ground. We're probably never going to change the minds of the people who are already so far in another direction, but you never know. You never know what God may still be up to. But there's that people who are in the I don't know camp. I'm not sure if I believe in Jesus or not. I'm not sure if I believe this way or that on a hot topic. There's people straddling that middle ground. And you can speak into that. And you can do it in a way that's not offensive. And you can do it in a way that is still honorable, but that's also firm. And I think that right now we need less lukewarm people on the internet. Less influencers just influencing how to decorate a house. I mean, there's a time and a place for that. But there's also some, very critical things that are going on in the world right now. Everything that has happened in the last, year, in the last 12 months, they have affected the business owners that I coach in a very deep way. For those that had, brick and mortars, it has been a horrible year. For those that were, in a full-time job and trying to get their part-time thing going, for a lot of them, it really ramped them up on why they need to do the thing that they need to do. It was very interesting too, that sharing a lot of my stories this week about why our family is choosing not to have this particular vaccine, and why we're wanting to get, masks off of our kids and things, and why I don't feel like it's okay that I can't go watch my son's track meet outside on a Friday afternoon. But Super Bowl stadium can be full. I mean, I just want to be consistent, folks. I mean, make it make sense, right? And so I think that it's really important that right now, if you feel like God's calling you to take a stand on some things, that you do it in a way that is honorable, but that you're also taking a stand. I can tell you that you may lose a few followers. Complete transparency. I lost 300 followers this week out of 99.4 thousand. We went down to 99.1 thousand. And then we bumped back up to 99.2. And so I didn't even look close enough into the numbers to know exactly how many we lost, but I know we've also gained some back. But I can tell you this, I sleep well at night because I'm being authentic to who I actually truly am. And that feels really good. Some of you have had a stomach ache for the last year because you feel like you have something you want to talk about, but as a business owner, should you? And I don't know, that's between you and God. But for those of you that are feeling like, when you're supposed to be talking, like, come on, sis, let's go. Like, there's plenty of people who are not believers, who are not people of faith, who are talking loudly. And so at some point, we have got to get the guts to do the same. And so thank you for those of you who disagree with me, who are still listening to my podcast. Thank you for those of you who disagreed with me, even on Instagram, and are still there. To the couple that I had to block and ban, I wish you well. But again, you can't just come into like, this is my storefront in the online space, and I wouldn't let you come into my brick and mortar and tell me to hush, and I'm not going to allow you to do that on my Instagram either. So I hope that this was encouraging for some of you today. If it was, go talk about something today that feels a little bit like, ooh, and tag me on it if you're doing it on your Instagram stories. I would love to cheer you on. In addition, let me just remind you that it's all about positioning, okay? And so people are much more likely to be able to support a position if it's backed by data and not just emotional, and if it involves our children. Honestly, they are. And so just know that, and just know that I'm rooting for you. Just know that if we disagree, I love you and bless you anyway. And I appreciate you being here. We can have conversations that are hard. It is possible for us as business owners to take a stand for things and not have to worry about the fallout of that. I have not been made aware of even one client that I've lost this week, because what I'm not trying to do is build a bunch of, people in the online space who believe like me. I'm trying to show you that there is a way to do a business where you can be completely yourself, and where you can be very spirit-led by what God's asking you to do. And you can quit watching everybody else in your industry and tiptoeing around topics you really want to talk about, but that you can do it in a way that's not offensive, that's also not going to kill your brand, because that's what a lot of people are scared about. The bottom line is a lot of people are scared of losing clients. And I want to challenge you on that. Look at that gym owner who's in like New Jersey, who's, instead of offering Krispy Kreme for free for a year for people who are getting the vaccine, he's offering you a gym membership. And he is now refusing people who are vaccinated because of the liability of that. And you can go read all about the story, but I'm just saying, he's gained a lot of national attention. And what we think is going to happen is that we're going to lose all these people. And instead, what we do is, the few that were on the fence about you anyway, you might lose them, but you're going to magnetize other people to you. I promise. And I've had so many DMs this week that have said, this is exactly why you're my business coach. I've even had a DM, I may not agree with you on everything, Jennifer, but this is why you're my coach, because I'm constantly trying to get women to just show up as exactly who they are and not talk about your truth, but talk about the truth. Don't water it down. It's not your truth. It's either the truth or it's not the truth. And there really is no middle ground. I love that saying, love me or hate me, but there's no money in the middle. All right, friends, be blessed and be encouraged this week. You can't have hard conversations if you feel called to them. And I'm rooting for you either way. Okay, bye-bye.